Hello, I'm Rob Armstrong from the Financial Times, and I'm very pleased to be here today with Francisco Alvarez de Malda, who is the co-founder and managing partner of Riverwood Capital, Carlos Garcia, who is the founder and CEO of Kavak, and finally, Mariana Diaz, the CEO and co-founder of Goopy. Mariana, tell us a little bit about your company and your background.
Okay, so I'm Mariana Diaz, co-founder and CEO of Guppy. So I started my career as an HR business partner for Latin America in a big company in Brazil. And in 2014, I was trying to solve a big problem about how this previous job could hire in a more assertive and faster way, and also deliver a better experience for all the candidates. It was one of the biggest problems for this company because it was a big one. And I was trying to solve for this company, and I had the insight of Guppy, my company. And I saw that it was not only its problem, but for almost Brazilian companies. And so just to give you a little overview, so in Brazil, we have a high unemployment rate. So the problem is when you open a vacancy as a company, you receive thousands of candidates. It's crazy. You have like vacancies with 1 million candidates. And half of the companies there in Brazil, they don't have technology during their hiring process. It's different than we see here in the United States. So that's why I saw opportunity to start this business with the mission about how we could leverage the employability in our region, Brazil, Latin America, and I'm passionate for this kind of business.
Carlos, tell us a little bit about your company and your background.
Yeah, I'm Carlos. I'm from Venezuela. I've been building businesses the most part of my life, and for the second part, more digital and tech businesses, I first got into the tech world working at Amazon in the UK, and it was like magic from a Venezuelan kid to just see how e-commerce worked. And I came back to the region to start a business similar to Amazon called Linio, which was a pretty amazing business back in the day. And it helped me learn, through how difficult it is to start business in Latin America. If you want to start one business, you have to make sure that you get ready to start several because there's no infrastructure. And in that process, I had a car in Colombia, and I was moving to Mexico, and I wanted to sell that car, and I got defrauded trying to sell that car. I lost a lot of money there and couldn't sell my car and had to leave to Mexico without selling it. Landed in Mexico, I was building this other business, and after a year, I went on to buy a car, and I got defrauded again. And a car is such an important asset for Latin America. You put so much of your savings into that purchase that I try to understand, how many people went through the problem that I went through, and what I learned changed my life. To give you an idea, 90% of transactions in Latin America are informal versus the US that is closer to 10%. And because there's so much informality, there's a lot of fraud associated to the transaction. So 40% of all transactions end up in some sort of fraud. And it goes from being killed, kidnapped, losing all of your money, losing a portion of your money. For me, I was lucky to be on the easiest path of fraud. But when I dug deeper into the problem, what I learned was that because there was so much fraud, and it was not associated to the lemon or the mechanical piece of the car, no bank really wanted to finance that asset. And that led to very poor financing penetration. So only 5% of Latin Americans get access to financing when they're going to buy a car against 90% in the US. And when you think about what that means is that out of 10 people in the US, 7 have cars. In Latin America, closer to 1. And I became obsessed about, 1, solving the fraud and delinquency issue around the transaction, and 2, creating an opportunity to create financial access of such an important tool and moving that gap from 1 to 7. And that's become the purpose of the company so far.
Francisco, you have a different perspective as an investor rather than a founder. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm a co-founder and co-managing partner of Riverwood. We invest in technology companies globally. We come into businesses when they are growing at a fast pace, already at the stage of proof, mid-sized companies that have a great opportunity for scalability. And we've been doing this since 2008. We do it globally, so we have the amazing opportunity to work with incredible companies and founders all across. And since day one, contrary to a lot of other colleagues and companies here in the US that invest in technology, we've been investing in Latin America since day one. So it's a very important part of our business, and it's a part that I feel very connected to because I'm originally from Latin America. So it's great to be able to contribute, be part of the development of the tech ecosystem in the region.
Mariana, Brazil has the reputation of being the biggest market for tech startups. Talk a little bit about your experience with that market in particular, and especially securing capital to grow your business.
Yeah, so I think that I have different story. So it's not a traditional one about how to scale with investment. So when we started Guppy, we started it without any investment. So I sold my car and my co-founders too.
With Carlos' help, I'm
no,
sure.
Unfortunately not.
We're their angels.
So I sold my car, I put all my investments, and we started the business for maybe 5 years without any investments. So it was crazy because it was not only my decision, it was because the market was hard to raise investments. So, but the good thing is, so we could build our company with so efficient. And so since the beginning, we had to have some decisions about how to grow without money. And we always see that investments to scale is an advantage to accelerate your strategy and not to survive, you know. And that's why I think in our last round, last year, that we raised $100 million with Riverwood. So we had a lot of proposals in our table, because we could show how it's also possible to scale a big business in Brazil, double every year. So since we started, we double every year. Also during the pandemic, we did the same. So, and also how we can now enjoy this new ecosystem in Brazil, that we have amazing investors and can help us not only with investments and money, but also with some structure helps and other things, you know.
Carlos, you're the first Mexican unicorn. Talk a little bit about, again, scaling a business in Mexico and how you made that transition out of that market onto the global stage, as it were.
Yeah, I think our story is similar in a way that, you know, when you wanted to raise capital in the early days in Latin America, there wasn't capital. So you had to think about your product, you had to think about your strategy and your technology first. And from there, you know, sort of start to build up. We started, our business is really complex across the line in terms of what we do. You have technology, you have assets, you have to expand, you really have to think it through. So what we did was we spent the first 4 years of our life just making sure that we had product market fit in Mexico City, understanding our customer, building our technology. And when the pandemic came, we had a choice of either, you know, survive it or thrive through it. And we were fairly aggressive in our decision making, and we expanded from Mexico to Brazil, Argentina, and to the rest of South America, and even outside of South America and Turkey. And it's been quite a journey, because every country that we go into, we have to really invest on infrastructure and put, you know, real assets together. But in a business that you don't have comparables, it gives us, within that complexity, allows us to compare each other and to drive more performance out of the company just by facing different challenges as we build.
Francisco, the region is so diverse, and starting and running a tech business in Brazil versus Argentina versus Mexico, very different experiences. Talk a little bit about your experience of that. What are the opportunities in different markets? What stages of development are the different markets in? You know, what would you highlight?
Yeah, look, I started with tech in the late 90s in Latin America. At that time, I was living in Buenos Aires in Argentina. And if you remember the 90s in Argentina, that was a great decade for the country. And there was actually a lot of capital. And,
yes.
And when I look at that first wave of internet, even then, you know, like Latin Americans, we were thinking regionally, globally. We had that tendency. So I think, and when I look back from them to now, it's over 20 years of looking at different entrepreneurial journeys. The Latin American entrepreneur is used to change, is used to context. You know, resilience is the norm. So I think that also creates that energy to go out and to build and to demonstrate who we are, what we can do. And I think some of that is shared across the region. Of course, each country is different. There's some dynamics that are different, but at the end, there's a lot of common themes. So there is an increasing number of amazing companies that are pursuing a regional opportunity across multiple countries. Brazil is a large market. You know, Mari has an incredible business just in Brazil, but maybe at some point, you know, she decides to go beyond. But then, you know, Carlos is an amazing example, you know, going out to different countries, adding value. And I think we also started to see over the last years, we're happy, proud investors in some of these companies that became global references in technology out of Latin America that are now selling globally, you know, such as Globant or Vitex that are having a lot of success by selling in the US, selling in Europe as well. So I think the opportunity is regional, is global, and I think you will hear more and more about Latin American entrepreneurs going out and building big businesses.
I'm glad you mentioned resilience because it certainly feels like we're heading into a time period where some resilience is going to be required. There's global inflation, there's supply chain challenges, there's talk of recession. I'm very interested to hear from you, Mari and Carlos. How do you plan to grow your business in an environment that's even more volatile than perhaps the one we've seen in the last couple of years?
Well, when you say recession, inflation, volatility, it sounds like a home game to me. You know, I come from Venezuela, so I've seen really how things can deteriorate and how fast they can. And you know, for us, it's just, you know, another day in the region. I think what's important as a founder and when you're building a company is the ability to zoom out and zoom in. If you zoom out, you know, the problems that we're solving are still as deep. Now you can solve them, you know, in a less crazy world of capital and focus on the fundamentals. And the opportunity is as big or bigger than it was when I started the business. If you zoom in, you have to realize that cost of capital is now more expensive and you have to be more thoughtful around how you're building your business and what, you know, the capital markets are going to back or not back. But I think it's also important to put things into perspective. You know, if you see what we've done in Mexico, for instance, that is an isolated piece of our business, in less than 5 years, we became the top 5 number car seller in the country, new and used. We became the number 1 financing arm to create access to cars to people. And when you put that into context and what you have achieved in 5 years, you have to zoom out and really bet on that what you're going to do in the next 5 or 10 years that are supposed to be the easy ones because you already figured out your product market fit. You already figured out the tough part of just building that business. So I'm excited, but you know, we have to make sure that we stick to the fundamentals and that we're able to also provide the right storyline for our investors because people freak out. And the reality is everybody needs to be zooming out to understand the big picture and making sure that tactically we're zoomed in into what we're living in today.
Mari, Carlos mentioned cost of capital. You operated for 5 years with only internally generated capital. Does this feel like a home game for you as well, what we're going into?
Yeah, and I totally agree when you say that. So this is kind of normal situation for us. So when we started Guppy, it was a hard time for Brazil with a high unemployment rate, and our business is help companies hire. So this thing is, I think that we have learned how to operate even in this hard time. And something that I learned with the pandemic is how we can take some opportunities with these moments. So during the pandemic, all the companies stopped to hire. And we double, and we double, and we increased it more than 100%. So how? So what we did, and I think that we are going to do again during this moment, is how we can offer new services for our customers, how we can improve our product to be amazing, more amazing for them, and how we can protect the team. Because in this kind of time, the team is so afraid about the layoffs and everything. So it's also a good moment to hire better talents and everything. So I try to see the good side of this kind of moment, you know.
Francisco, obviously you've had some success finding entrepreneurs with strong visions, ability to execute. What are you looking for in those first meetings? What makes an entrepreneur successful in the Latin American markets?
Yeah, look, I think it can be a long answer. I'll try to summarize it, maybe an unfair summary, but when I think about it and I look back at our own experience and what I have seen, I'm a founder and entrepreneur myself, and I think I can relate to, how exciting but also difficult at the same time can be to build a business. I would say there's three things that to me are keys, what I look for. Number one, it's all about values. At the end, you want to be part of a game and a journey with people that share your values, that mean well, that want to, of course, be successful, but at the same time that are conscious about what they are doing, that they really want to, make other people successful and be part of a journey where everybody is. Because at the end, that's what you do as a leader. You gotta attract talent. You gotta attract, people that want you to win, and it requires that human connection, those values. So number one is that. To me, it's really important. And then number two is to have an incredible vision and energy. Sometimes there's a thin line between that and, sounded crazy, but you gotta be a little crazy. We're gonna change this, we're gonna change the car market. We're gonna change completely how companies recruit in Brazil. So you gotta have that ambition, that vision, that energy to really change things, to transform, to do something new. And the third one, and relates a little bit to what Carlos said, you gotta then zoom in. So it's great to have the vision, it's great to have an ambition, but then you need, of course, intensity, execution, planning. Sometimes we find that in co-founders. Sometimes one co-founder is more a visionary and someone that, she or he are like going for it.
Yeah.
There's a balance.
Someone has to get into the weeds.
Yeah, exactly. That is keeping things on track and managing. So that combination I find to be crucial, because at the end, we are all the time pushing, moving forward, transforming, but at the same time, you got to deliver. In particular, after the initial phase of proof, for you to scale to build a business that is sustainable, that can be here over 30, 40 years, you got to build the basis, you got to make sure that things are running, and that requires a lot of intensity, execution, people coming together.
Well, let's talk about vision for a second. Mari, where do you see your business in 5 years? Or 3 years? 5 is too long. 3 years.
3 years. So we started this company with just 4 co-founders 7 years ago. We already have 700 people. We are the leader for HR technology in Brazil. And we not only offer the hiring solution, but also learning, admission, everything, one-stop solution. So I see that we will not be just the leader in our market with all the solutions that we offer, but also in other emerging markets. So I see that what we are doing in Brazil, we can help a lot of emerging markets with employability, So this mission about how we can leverage employability, it's so amazing to help not only the companies, but the society, the economy. So this is the thing that I see that we can do for the next 3-5 years, go outside.
Carlos, 2026, where are you going to be?
Well, I think, we have to stick to our guiding metric. We ideally, by 2026, more than 60% of our clients are buying their car for the first time in their life. And ideally, by that time, the clients that we build out today, we build a partnership with them, is that they're in their second or third relationship with us when it comes to the asset. And hopefully, we're very much penetrated in the markets that we are today, and we see other opportunities where we can serve as well.
Francisco, we'll end with you. Where is the LATAM tech scene going to be in 2026?
It's tough to predict the future. I give you my optimistic bet, which I think would be that we would be in a situation where we went through this cycle of capital adjustment, where there's going to be some companies that will probably fail, but there's going to be a lot of companies that will navigate through this in a great way, that will continue to grow and thrive. These companies will represent even a bigger share of the economy and of the daily lives in Latin America, where they continue to transform the opportunity. This sector, I hope, will continue to also create a lot of new opportunities. Latin America has been known over the years, including in the Financial Times reporting, for energy, for commodity exports, for more traditional sectors. And I think there is a huge economy, almost a new economy and a new market, a new way of doing business that tech and tech-enabled businesses are building in the region. And I personally believe that that's amazing for the region. So I hope we see, not just a few public companies in tech as they are today in Latam, but maybe in 4 or 5 years, many more.
Francisco, Carlos, Mari, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching.